Let's continue on with another court case that we have been following very closely, this time out of Atlanta. Take a look at this, some footage from inside of the courtroom earlier this week. We're continuing our coverage on the drama-filled YSL trial. On Monday, Young Thug's lawyer Brian Steele was held in contempt and arrested in the courtroom. You're taking a look at some footage there of that entire scenario. Today, we're learning that Steele has been granted bond pending his appeal of the contempt order. And for more on that and all the fireworks in court this week, we're joined by legal affairs journalist Megan Kenneth. Megan, always good to see you. You've been on top of the story from the beginning, and now it seems to be ramping up again. So what do we know today?
Yes, today there was a recusal motion brought against the judge who actually ordered Steele held in contempt of court. It wasn't specifically ordered over the contempt finding, but it was over this private meeting that led to the contempt finding. Brian Steele, Young Thug's lawyer, was held in contempt of court because he wouldn't tell the judge who told him about this meeting that the judge had Monday morning with the key witness and prosecutors, and the defense wasn't notified about it. So today, there was a 15-page recusal motion filed against the judge regarding this meeting. It had a few different reasons stated in there, but the judge promptly rejected it. But then the big news came this afternoon when the Georgia Supreme Court actually stepped in and gave Brian Steele bond pending his appeal of this contempt order. So he is not going to have to go report to jail Friday at 7 p.m. I think that was expected from most everyone regarding this appeal, but it's official now that he does not have to report to jail Friday at 7 p.m. And this appeal of the contempt order will proceed. And I think a lot of people are expecting that he has a pretty good chance, but this was a pretty quick rebuke against this move against Steele by the Georgia Supreme Court.
Megan, I'm sure that this is causing so much concern when it comes to this trial. We've been hearing so much about even people, being against the prosecution and what they've brought forth here. And now we have this latest drama in the courtroom, if you will, over Young Thug's lawyers. I think the question now is a judge single-handedly allowed to refuse any recusal requests? And even if people are accusing this judge, so to speak, of being impartial in this trial?
It depends on the jurisdiction in the court. In the federal courts that I cover in Los Angeles, actually, the Central District of California was an outlier for a long time and allowed judges to consider their own recusal motions. But they changed that in the last couple of years, and now the motions go to another judge. I'm not quite sure what the exact procedure is in Georgia State Court, but Doug Weinstein, who brought the recusal motion, was really making the case that Judge Glanville needed to pass this on to another judge, and even said, Judge, don't you want to get out from under the cloud that's hanging over this case right now? And Judge Glanville just said, he read the motion and he wasn't granting it, that his decision was made. So these are the kind of things that happen in these cases that are ongoing, these trials that are ongoing, and there really is no recourse for them beyond an appeal at the end of the case. If there's a judgment and sentence rendered in this case, then they can go to the Court of Appeals and raise all these issues that happened at trial. But what's so unusual here is this is such a long trial. We're looking at least through the end of the year, probably well into next year, we're going to be having this case.
Such a long trial, Megan. I'm glad that you said it, because it really does feel that for months we've already been talking about this. And we were talking a little bit before I brought you on. It kind of seemed to drop off a bit and now ramping up all over again with the latest drama in the courtroom. So let's get back to what happened yesterday with Kayla Bumpus. She withdrew from the case and later posted online calling it a circus, pointing to the ex parte conversations. Have you heard any more of that?
No, I haven't. And, we haven't heard anything like that. And those are the kind of things that would be brought in written motions and, made a little bit more formally. But I think the statement about this being a circus, there's so much extraneous stuff and people get so excited about, the drama that happens when the jury's gone. But in my experience covering trials, that stuff is such a distraction and such a noise that, I mean, it just becomes contrary, and it clouds the actual testimony that's going on when it's so important to actually look at the actual case and the testimony and how prosecutors are trying to bring this gang conspiracy case over all these different acts and things that happened over the last 10 years. So the drama that happens between the attorneys, I think especially right now, I can see why it got everyone's attention, because this is such an unusual move by Judge Glanville, not only the contempt order, but the meeting that he had. And the meeting is what really gets into the heart of the case, because Kenneth Copeland is such a crucial witness. And there was a moment this afternoon that I thought was kind of alarming, because Max Shard, who's an attorney for Shannon Stillwell, has raised the issue of, and so have the others, that they need to get the statements that Kenneth Copeland made during this private meeting, because he's such a crucial witness and a cross-examination is coming up. And if he made statements that are contrary to things that he said before, because he was originally charged in the murder of Donovan Thomas, which is a big part of this case. It's a big question of this case is who killed Donovan Thomas. And the defense contends that it was still Kenneth Copeland. But a couple of the guys who were on trial, including Shannon Stillwell, are actually charged with Thomas's murder. So it's obviously in Shard's interest to get any kind of statements that Kenneth Copeland made during this meeting on Monday morning about Donovan Thomas's murder. But Judge Glanville, who did not even notify the attorneys about this ex parte meeting, which if he's going to have ex parte, which is the one-on-one discussion, one party only discussion with attorneys, he needs to notify the other side, and he didn't do that. But he told Max Shard today that he's still combing through the transcript and seeing if there are any releasable statements regarding Kenneth Copeland. So I think that's kind of an alarming testament of what's going on and how these decisions are really affecting the case and the testimony, because we have a cross-examination coming up that they're trying to prepare for. And it sounds like they don't have all the material yet, but Glanville's not sure what's releasable or not yet. But anyway,
there's just so many questions still left with this entire trial and this case. And like you said, there's so many points that we have to tackle on to try to make it coherent and cohesive for maybe someone that's not even familiar with this particular case. So Megan, I want to leave you with the last word here, because you mentioned a good point, which is this whole term of it being a circus now and kind of all over the place. It's gotten really the attention of so many people, but there's important things that we should be focusing on, specifically when it comes to testimony that's actually prevalent in this trial. So what are you looking forward to in the weeks ahead, and maybe something that we've lost sight of along the way?
I think in the weeks ahead, we're going to be hearing more about Donovan Thomas's murder. And there's actually a rapper who's from Atlanta and pretty well known. He goes by Rich Homie Quan. It's his performer name. He's supposed to be taking the stand because he was friends with Donovan Thomas and part of this whole group. So there's a lot more testimony that's going to come out here. But I mean, as Doug Weinstein said when he was arguing his recusal motion, there's such a cloud hanging over the case right now with all the attention that this contempt order and Judge Glanville's actions are getting. So while we have the Steele not going to jail on Friday, we still have the issue of this contempt order under appeal. So it'll be interesting to see how fast the court acts there, because if they end up throwing out that contempt order, it'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of changes in Glanville's behavior, or if that kind of takes him down a couple notches.
All right, just posting up some more footage from earlier this week, because again, Young Thug's lawyer, Brian Steele, you see him there being held in contempt of court. He even saying that he was going to share a jail cell with Young Thug, if I'm correct, with this entire, and that's what's really taken over social media at the moment. But I do appreciate Megan Cuniff, legal affairs journalist, for coming on and again, kind of reeling it back in, putting into focus what really needs to be paid attention to when it comes to this trial, and we still have such a long way to go. So Megan, I look forward to connecting with you as we continue to process all of these new developments.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Megan. And I do want to bring up a tweet here one more time from Megan Cuniff, always relying on her expertise when it comes to these sometimes complicated legal cases in the entertainment world. Here saying, Justin, Young Thug's lawyer Brian Steele has been granted bond pending his appeal of Judge Glanville's contempt order. And that is the big breaking news of the day.